Hot mic. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to Agnes Macphail's birthday party. If you can, would you please stand and join Catherine Plenner, representing the Friends of the Museum, in singing loud and proud our national anthem. Is here. What a pleasure. Alex, be delighted if you come up and give us a few words. Thank you for coming all this way.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's always a pleasure to be down here and to pay tribute to Agnes Macphail. This would have been 135 years old this year. Pretty incredible. And she made a mark not only here in our riding, in our neck of the woods, but Canada and really on the global stage. I have the privilege when I'm in Ottawa at the entrance to the House of Commons, to the chamber, is a bust of Agnes Macphail. And it's pretty special because there's only two busts there. I don't even know who the bust of the other person is on the other side on the entrance, but Agnes is right there in the main entrance to the House of Commons. You know, she was first elected down here in Grey South East, would later represent Grey Bruce. She worked so hard to represent the farmers and rural interests in Ottawa, something I take to heart too. And she knew what mattered to our rural communities. And she was instrumental in not only the formations of her old age pensions, but she was actually critical in the reform of Canada's prison system. So she's just been an incredible icon and leader for Canada, for women, and for our neck of the woods. And I just want to thank all the friends of the museum and Agnes Macphail for continuing to recognize such an important Canadian icon, and it's a pleasure to be part of this. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Alex. We have other distinguished guests with us today. They're distinguished because they're known for their work in our communities. Brian Milne is here, Mayor of Southgate, welcome. Paul McQueen, did Paul come? I'm just introducing you, you'll be on later. But we're glad you're here, Brian. Yeah, great stuff. Hey, you beat Paul McQueen, is he here? Not quite yet, all right. But Andrea Matrasovos is here somewhere. There you are. Okay, great. And she's our Grey County Warden. Paul Vickers is here. He's the new kid in town. We'll be hearing from him later. Oh, and I see some councillors here. There's Nadia Dubuk over there. Who else? Who else is here? Joan? Oh, there you are. Hi, yeah. Hi. Barbara, Deputy Mayor. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody, any wannabes? No? Okay. Yeah, sign up. We'll get to you, Lynn. We're gathered here today to celebrate one of the most significant women in Canadian history. Agnes Macphail was born right here in Grey County, in fact, really not far away from here. in a log cabin in Proton Township. And in the 1921 federal election, she was the United Farmers of Ontario candidate running against 9 other male candidates. And she was elected in Durham. She ultimately chose to live in Ceylon, just around the corner. Ceylon was home base for her for 19 years as our MP. She was the first Canadian woman to hold that position. And today I think we can say we're still reaping the benefits of her determination to improve the lives of those less fortunate than us, from farmers to miners to prison reform, and she pursued equality for women. Her achievements are firsts, and her firsts are legendary. And today, she rests in the Macphail Cemetery plot in Priceville, where she is still very much a part of this community to this day. And tomorrow, March 24th, being her actual birthday, this afternoon leading up to her 100th birthday, this is her birthday party. Thank you, Brenda. You all know Brenda. Now, you'll remember the documentary, 2023. It was a documentary about Agnes called No Bed of Roses. There was a lot of research done in preparation for that doc, including reviews from her papers, and they're all held at the National Library in Ottawa. Of course, all the archives at Grey Roots, and the Friends of the Museum thought they had it pretty much covered, but they missed something. Friend of Jane Gibson's from her high school days in Paris, Ontario, Bob Gibson, sent her this image of Agnes. Bob sent it. As you can see it on the screen, Bob found this drawing in his late aunt's papers. Now, as a caricature, it's a pretty positive rendering of Agnes, but despite the friends searching, neither the artist nor the motivation for its creation has ever been determined. They do know it would have been created likely after 1932, since the Cooperative Commonwealth Party, the CCF, was created in 1932. Agnes did join the CCF later on. Anyway, the Friends would be delighted if anyone in the audience could shed any light on the puzzle of who did this for them. So now, I'd like you to meet Grace Marshall. She's going to introduce us to Dr. Annemarie Doenne. Grace has lived on the Bootjack Ranch Road near the property owned by the Doennes, and she grew up to admire Dr. Annemarie's spirit and her style in delivering medical services to the Markdale and Durham area. Come on up, Grace. This admiration developed into a book. It's titled Just Call Me Doc. I'm going to show it to you later. She was co-authored by both women and covers the story of Annemarie's early years in Germany to her practicing medicine from an office in her house. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest speaker, Grace Marshall.
Hi, everyone. Before I start in on the story of Annemarie, I want to clarify the pronunciation of her name. While it's usually Anne-Marie, in German, the E is pronounced E. I did not know this, I don't speak German, but Annemarie explained it to me. The E is pronounced E, so Anne-Marie becomes Annemarie. She didn't care whether people called her Annemarie or Annemarie, but she was German, that's the way she pronounced it, so that's the way I pronounce it. So when I first met her, she asked me if I had a dog. I said yes. She said, what do you do with his hair when you brush him? I said, I just toss it out into the field. She said, may I have it to spin? I said, completely ignoring the question, I said, you spin. Will you teach me to spin? And that was the beginning of our friendship. And she taught me to spin, and when she died, she willed her spinning wheel and a couple of bins of Samoyed hair. She had lots of hair. She didn't really need my dog's hair. Anyway, her story is one of determination, inspiration, and a love shared by Annemarie and Bill Doenne. It's a love story, a story about life in Frankfurt, a story about World War II from the Germans' perspective, and the story about a country doctor in rural Ontario. She faced many uphill battles, but never backed down. Her early history, there we go, early history. There's her great-grandmother and her grandmother. They both lived in Offenbach, which is a smaller town about 12 kilometers from Frankfurt. And then her mother, Joanna, she trained as a nurse. She loved children, and when she finished her nurse's training, her final job took her to a family in Switzerland that had 2 small boys with tuberculosis. On her days off, she liked to go skiing in the Alps. Her father making an appearance, there we go. Her father, Hubert Weitz, was a banker in Frankfurt, and he too liked to spend his days off in the Alps, in the mountains. And one day, in 1922, he met a pretty young nurse. They were married shortly after. She was 22 and he was 36. In September 19th, 1923, their first child, Annemarie, was born. 2 years later, their daughter, a sister for Annemarie, Lilo, was born, and a year after that, her brother Hubert. And there's a picture of Lilo and Hubert, and the next picture will show the 3 of them with Annemarie in the middle. And she was 2 years older than the other 2, and her mother would often send them to the park across the road from where they lived and put Annemarie in charge. And she said, those brats, they never listened to a word I said. But they all got along, which was good. Annemarie decided at a very early age, I think she was around 4 or 5, I think, that she wanted to be a doctor. She was inspired by their family doctor, who would come to the house whenever anyone was sick, not feeling well, and by the time he left, they'd be feeling better. And that was what she wanted to do, make people feel better. Her father was an elder in the Lutheran Church, and both her parents thought it important to help others. When she was in public school, there were a few children less fortunate and sometimes too poor to eat properly. So every couple of weeks, her father would tell her to invite someone over for dinner, and they would send her home at the end of the evening after a healthy meal and a little present. She had an idyllic childhood. The family would often go on picnics and take vacations every summer in the country. Her father would rent 2 rooms at a resort, and they'd be there for 4 weeks. And absolutely idyllic. They were city kids, so they loved getting out to the country. And that was great up until January of 1933. Her idyllic childhood came to an abrupt end when Hitler came to power. Then, 6 years later, when she was just 16, September 1939, World War II shattered all semblance of normalcy. 16, most of us at 16 are thinking about dating, learning to drive, going to high school football games. Annemarie was facing the ravages of war. For 12 years, the people of Germany lived in an atmosphere of fear. I remember her explaining to me the difference between fear from a bomb and fear, the psychological fear. She said the physical fear of bombs is very different from the psychological fear that someone, possibly a neighbor, someone you thought was a friend, might turn you in and someone in your family could die or you could just disappear. She saw that happen. There were very few single-family dwellings in Frankfurt, and the Weitzes lived in a 3-story apartment building with 1 or 2 apartments on each floor. There were 3 other families in addition to the Weitzes, and each family had a maid. The maids all lived together in the attic apartment at the top. They were on the ground floor. And there was a nice family living on the 2nd floor above them. They had 2 children, roughly the same ages of Annemarie and Hubert. The father had helped a Jewish friend escape to England, and the friend wrote him a letter of thanks. One day, the Gestapo came and took him away. He was never seen again. She said, we heard later that someone had seen the letter and turned him into the authorities. It was 12 years of unbelievable stress and hardship. War, she said, unless a person lived it, they could never fully understand its impact on your soul. What it was like to live under the rule of Adolf Hitler, she said, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. There was death and destruction everywhere. She said, the war years are bad. You do your best to live through it, but it teaches you one thing. Whatever possessions and treasures you have mean nothing to a bomb. You can have super duper furniture, then one bomb and poof, it's gone. You can lose all material things and you realize that what really matters is life, especially your family. She described the air raids. She said planes bombed us day and night, and while you ignored the sirens until you felt the earth shake, and then you'd run quickly to the basement. All life is precious. During an air raid, she said, we'd all take refuge in the basement, and there was a little mouse living there. She said it was so cute, no one minded that it was a mouse. It was trying to survive the war just like we were. And as scarce as food was, she said we all fed that little mouse. With all the able-bodied men in the war, there weren't enough people left to work the farms or in the factories. So Hitler created work duty. It wasn't an option. There she is, work duty. The girls had to spend 6 months working on a farm and 6 months working in the factories. That's where they were housed when they were working on the farms in bunks. And then when they were working in the factory, it was a different building. And they didn't have bunk beds, but there they all are. It was tough. There she's working at Leica, which is a company that made lenses in prisons. They made cameras when they were not at war, but they made prisms and lenses for the submarines, and she was studying for bubbles to make sure. Oh, there they are in front of the barracks for work duty. Annemarie's the one on the far right, looking this way. So in 1941, when she was, they start in March. Every morning, Hitler was really big on exercise and discipline. And the work duty girls had 3 guards. And every morning, first thing, they started off on a march. That's how they began every day for a year. So when she was 18, she had to do her work duty. And after completing the work duty, she was able to attend university. Without doing the work duty, she wouldn't have been allowed in university. The boys, that's her work duty uniform. You can see she doesn't look happy. And there's Hubert. The boys were taken out of school earlier. Hubert was 16 and a half when he was taken out, and he was put in work duty for 6 months and then sent off to war when he was just 17 years old. I mean, he's so young. He's just a baby. Anyway, when she finished her work duty, she was able to start university. She had to prove that there were 5 generations of her family of Aryan heritage. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been allowed to attend. As the months turned into years, the bombing got worse. Her father rented an apartment on the 2nd floor of an old farmhouse, and her mother and Lilu moved to the country for safety, while Annemarie and her father stayed in Frankfurt so her father could work and she could go to medical school. She said when the first bomb hit their house, it was damaged but still livable. When the second bomb hit, they came home at the end of the day and found the house was destroyed. They had nowhere to live. They moved into her father's office at the bank, and she continued to attend medical school. She said it wasn't easy in the middle of a war. The physics lab, the physics lab had been badly bombed, and they had to write their examination at the professor's house. While they were writing, the air raid sirens went off. The professor said, "It's not close, keep writing." She said, "Try to imagine, with the sirens wailing, the bombs falling, we had to write our examination amidst all that chaos." When Annemarie wasn't in school, she was working at a small Red Cross first aid center next to the bank. She and an older doctor, who was an internist, not experienced in setting bones or bandaging wounds, were the only ones there with any medical training the night a young soldier was brought in who clearly needed to have his leg amputated immediately or he would die. Annemarie donated blood, and then the doctor said to her, "You know, Annemarie, it's been a very long time since I studied anatomy. You probably know more about this than I. How do we do this?" She had seen it done once before. That was the extent of her experience. So try to picture, again, no electricity, no anesthetic, her dad holding a lantern. They amputated the young soldier's leg. To illustrate the food shortage, the first aid station got bones that they boiled to make a broth to feed the wounded soldiers. After boiling them twice, they were discarded. Her father would take the discarded bones, boil them up a third time, crush the bones with a hammer to make hamburger patties. She described them as being a little crunchy. But this was war, and they took nourishment wherever they could find it. 1945, the war ended, but the suffering continued. We're all aware of the devastation wrought by the collapse of the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center in New York. Multiply that to encompass an entire city buried in ruins, and you will have some inkling as to what post-war Frankfurt was like. There was widespread starvation. People were homeless. It often took weeks to locate the victims' bodies in the rubble, and the smell of death hung in the air. All the universities closed, and Annemarie went to work as a waitress in an American mess hall. Nothing was wasted. When she collected the officers' plates, any food on the plate that looked untouched was stashed in her pocket and taken home. Finally, after a year, the university reopened and she was able to resume her medical studies. 5 years later, she graduated. She and Bill had met shortly after the war, but her parents didn't want her to get married until she graduated. So 2 weeks after her graduation, they were married on Friday the 13th, April 1950. They both wanted to leave Germany, and Canada was where they ended up. It was just easier. They were going to the States, but they needed someone to sponsor you and going to the States, and somewhere else they needed something else. Canada, just welcome to Canada. She said, Canada, we got to get to the train. There we go. They're on the they had to go on a train to get to where the ship was sailing in Italy. She said, we didn't know a soul. We didn't know anything about life in Canada, our new home, but we knew we could make it. We were young, we were pals, and we loved each other. They found a ship leaving from Genoa. The train took them through Germany and Switzerland and on to Italy. They were so excited. It was March 1951. They couldn't wait to get on the ship. Not only were they embarking on a journey to a new country and a new life, this was to be their long-awaited honeymoon. They boarded the ship and watched from the rail as passengers and cargo were loaded, their hearts full of joy and anticipation, until Bill said, "Oh, the boat is moving." "No," she said, "look, the ropes are still tied." "But it's going," he said, "I can feel it." The ship hadn't moved. All they had done was turn on the engines. She looked at Bill. He was white. Some honeymoon this was going to be. And it only got worse for poor Bill. He was seasick all the way to Halifax. March is a very bad time to be on a ship crossing the Atlantic, and there were times when that ship would roll so far over, Annemarie feared it would go all the way and capsize. After a horrific voyage, they finally arrived in Halifax and took a train to Toronto. The first week after arriving in Toronto, they'd found an apartment, and Annemarie had taken a job as a nurse's aide at Wellesley Hospital. During her interview at Wellesley, they had asked her if she had any nurse's training. She had 3 years of pre-med, 4 years of medical school. It was her Red Cross badge that got her the job. Then 2 weeks later, she required surgery. Dr. Defoe, the doctor who delivered the Doenne quintuplets in 1934, had to perform an emergency hysterectomy. If this had happened while she was on the ship, she would have died. It was a difficult beginning to their new life. When she recovered from surgery, she went to the office of the Registrar of the College of Physicians and Surgeons to find out what was required to practice medicine in Canada. When she walked into his office, he looked at her and said, "You're German. You shot at our boys." She said, "I didn't shoot at anybody." He said, "But you're a woman, and you're German." This was 1951, and medicine was very much a man's profession. The war ended in 1945, but was still fresh in a lot of people's minds. The returning soldiers got their medical studies paid for them, and it took about 6 years, so this was the year they would all be looking for internships. He said to her, "You know, our boys all have to have internship, and you have to have one too. Why don't you get a job in a factory?" She tried again at Toronto Western Hospital. They said they would take her if she could wait a year. So she continued working as a nurse's aide at Wellesley Hospital, and a year later was accepted at Toronto Western Hospital to do her internship. In the fall of 1954, she took her examination and was at last licensed to practice medicine in Canada. Life in Grey County. In 1952, she and Bill had borrowed money for the down payment to purchase a 100-acre farm in Grey County on a road now known as Bootjack Ranch Road. The house was a disaster. It had been vacant for 10 years, didn't have electricity or plumbing. Since the old farmhouse wasn't habitable, they continued to live in Toronto, but would come up on weekends to work on it. They purchased more land as it became available until they had 300 acres. They had fun. They worked hard. They had fun. That's Annemarie being pushed around in a birthday present that year. So they worked on it full-time in 1960. They moved up in 1960. There they are. You can tell. I mean, they were in love. And then that lasted right up until the last day. She joined him. Where did I leave off? Bill moved up to Toronto, from Toronto in 1960 to work on it full-time, and Annemarie continued to practice medicine in Toronto. But in the fall of 1961, she came up and officially opened her practice at the house. It was time to get a dog. Vicky was their first Samoyed. And when she had her puppies, there's Bill with one of the young pups. And there they are. She set up a nursery in the kitchen and had a barricade, so the puppies were behind the barricade. And one day she had a woman who was with her young daughter, and the little girl wanted to go to the bathroom. So she'd been there before, so off she went to the bathroom. Well, she didn't come back. So Annemarie and her mother decided they better go look for her. She wasn't in the bathroom. She was in the kitchen. She climbed over the barricade. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by puppies. In addition to a flourishing medical practice and running a successful dude ranch, she and Bill raised Samoyeds and bred Arabian horses. Tammy was their first purebred Arabian, and Annemarie was with her in the barn when she was about to have her first foal. Annemarie called Bill on the intercom, but the foal was born before he got there. I didn't know this, but foals are in a membrane that is shed in the birthing process. And this foal was still in its membrane. Tammy was ignoring it. Annemarie knew the foal would die if the membrane wasn't removed. Not having a knife or anything to cut it with, she didn't hesitate. She tore it with her teeth. The foal popped its head out and took its first breath. Once the head was out, the membrane came off easily, and Tammy took over, biting off the umbilical cord and licking her foal clean. But it wasn't making any attempt to get up. So Bill held Tammy while Annemarie straddled the foal and put the teat in his mouth. He wanted no part of this, and after 20 minutes they gave up and went to the house for a cup of coffee. It was the middle of the night and they were tired. But they knew that without the colostrum, the foal wouldn't survive. So half an hour later, they went back to the barn to try again. And there was the foal, enthusiastically sucking down his first meal, all on his own. They had added a large pond and a swimming pool, 7 small cottages that they rented out during the summer months. Bootjack Ranch became a successful dude ranch for families who would return year after year to spend the summer vacations swimming, boating, riding, hiking, playing with the foals and the puppies and the kittens. She was known to her patients as Doc, and her patients had far more than a doctor. They had a friend, a confidant, an advisor. She was a true country doctor. No one ever made an appointment. They just showed up and patiently waited in her waiting room. And when the waiting room filled up, they overflowed onto the stairs. They played cards, brought their knitting, chatted. No one minded the wait. And unless she was called away to deliver a baby, her day didn't end until everyone had been seen. Annemarie was also chief of staff of the Durham Hospital for 12 years. Her life was full of love and an abundance of animals, living both in the house and in the barn. The barn was full of cats, and for a while they had 2 baby raccoons in the house that had been rescued when their mother, there's Mugsy, when their mother was killed. She had a full and happy life, until one day, when Bill was shaving, he noticed a lump on his neck. They checked it out immediately, and the test came back positive. He was diagnosed with lymphoma. Chemotherapy gave him another 4 years, but early in 2000, he began slowing down. She didn't want him going to the barn, but that was impossible to keep him out. Nothing would keep him from his horses. They were their babies. They'd raised them from birth. They were like family. It was February one day. He came in from the barn feeling so tired he went to bed and slept for about 3 hours. But when he got up, he bounced down the stairs and said, "I feel like a newborn calf," and off he went to the barn. Fred, his helper, said, "I never saw anyone change so fast." Early the next morning, Fred called her from the barn's intercom asking where Bill was. Annemarie searched the house calling for him. She finally found him just outside the door to the porch, lying dead on the floor. Her husband, her best friend, was gone. She said she never felt so lost. 3 years later, at the age of 80, she retired. Many of her former patients kept in touch, and she had friends who visited, as well as people who'd been summer guests at the ranch. Her brother Hubert, who came to Canada and settled in Toronto soon after Bill and Annemarie, visited regularly and always spent a few days with her on the anniversary of Bill's death. During the summer of 2006, I had a friend coming up from Toronto to visit me, and as he was a retired doctor, I thought he would enjoy meeting Annemarie. Jim was enthralled, and after the visit, suggested that her stories could be recorded. I said, "I can do that." I said I'd recorded my uncle's life stories on a tape, transcribed them. All my cousins were thrilled reading about his life. But when I approached Annemarie, she said, "There's nothing special about my life." I said, "Nothing special about your life?" I was able to talk her into it, and we spent several weeks with me interviewing and recording her stories on a small recorder and then transcribing. It turned into Everybody Calls Me Doc, which was published in the spring of 2007. Her story had quite an impact on me, and after completing the book, I wrote her the following letter. I would like to read that letter to you. "Dear Annemarie, I want you to know the effect this has had on me. I learned a little about World War II at school, about Adolf Hitler and the indescribable horrors of the concentration camps, but history was pretty low on my list of priorities when I was a teenager. What I did not realize was that during his rise to power, Hitler was making promises to a people suffering through serious economic depression. His campaign slogan, "Freedom and Bread," bears a strong resemblance to "a chicken in every pot," an advertisement that ran during Herbert Hoover's 1928 presidential campaign. Hitler was promising economic prosperity and a better life for everyone. He knew what the key issues were and told the people what they wanted to hear to get their votes. I learned that many of the German people lived in fear of Hitler. They saw what he was, but were powerless to do anything to stop him. Anyone daring to speak out against Hitler suffered dire consequences. And the war, how different our lives were. I remember coming home every day from high school. I'd walk in the front door, drop my books on the table, and shout, "Mom, I'm home," while I headed for the fridge, which was always full of food. You, on the other hand, came home after school, never knowing if it would be to the house you left in the morning or to a pile of rubble, and forget about a well-stocked fridge. I was reading this one time to a group of German people, and when I said, "and forget about a well-stocked fridge," they said, "Forget about a fridge." Anyway, back to the letter. I learned so much about you and the importance of attitude. Being grateful for what one has, and being kind to others is the key to being a successful person. What stands out most is hearing you say, "Things, possessions do not matter. Life is what's important." Thank you, Annemarie, for sharing your experiences and wisdom with me. Knowing you has enriched my life, and I feel truly blessed to call you my friend and honored to have you call me yours. Fondly, Gay. She was so touched, she insisted the letter be put into the book. 3 years later, at the age of 86, Annemarie suffered a fall at home and died in the hospital shortly after, on January the 15th, 2010. She was laid to rest at the McNeil Cemetery in Priceville. Annemarie always said she felt lucky to be born into a happy, fun-loving, caring family. She said her parents were very fun-loving people. She had the best marriage. They loved and helped each other. She gave special thanks to her patients and neighbors who taught them what farm life was all about. She said she was especially thankful for her brother Hubert, but most of all, she said, "I am thankful for Bill." Thank you all for coming. Hello.
Thank you, Grace.
Sneaking up behind me.
Moving and timely presentation. Packed full, I think. So we have time for a couple of questions, if anybody wants any more clarity on what Grace brought us today.
Oh, bless you. Oh, one.
1, 2. Ladies
Oh.
first. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I was able to go to one of the Fleshton Farmers Market's fall fairs.
Oh, yes.
And they won our door prizes.
Oh,
And the book that I won was Everybody Calls Me.
oh, isn't that nice?
Then sometime later, I met my Suzanne here, being a German doctor, and I gave it to her, and she has enjoyed it too.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very nice.
That is. Stuart has a question.
Well, it's not a question, but it's a statement is, that book has been out of print for too long. Okay?
It has.
You did a wonderful job with it.
Thank you.
Really, thank you. You touched a lot of things. I was born in 1939 at
Oh.
Wellesley Hospital. So you
Oh,
can see
yes,
all
there's a
that.
connection.
I was connecting and it was, you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate what you've done. You certainly added to our community, to our awareness of the great ladies of Grey. Okay, and we're celebrating Agnes Campbell, but you know, Annemarie was certainly one of the great ladies of our
She was, yes. She definitely, one of a kind. Really, really nice.
So, got to speak to a publisher here. Get this book because I'm also on the library board. And, you know, I don't think we have a copy of that in our library.
Oh, because in the Flesherton Library?
You do.
Because
The librarian says we do.
Our chief librarian for 45 years.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Well done, well done.
It's a great book, and everybody should enjoy it.
Oh, well, thank
Your
you.
presentation was fantastic.
That's very nice of you to say that, never having spoken in front of a large group of people. It was very nice of you to say that.
And it's nice to meet you, and people from Bootjack Ranch Road already.
Yes.
And from Priceville. It's been great.
No, I should mention Tim, who was doing all the keeping up with me and with the photographs. He keeps telling me that we can get the book through Amazon, and he's going to help me with that because I have no
We
idea.
don't use Amazon much.
We don't like that?
Elbows up.
For that,
Chapters.
we will.
Oh,
Wilda?
I was just curious, I was one of the people that visited her office.
Oh, were
She
you?
was
Yes.
Practicing, I wondered if there's some other people here, hands up who went, because that's quite an experience.
Oh, isn't that
And you're
fun?
absolutely
Keep your
right.
hands up. That was quite a number of you.
I used to work for her.
You used to work for her.
Yeah, work with her and for her. I've seen those cottages many times.
Oh,
And
yes.
I worked at the hospital.
Oh, good. Oh, isn't that fun?
And it's exactly as you said, it would be overflowing and people would be sitting on the steps.
Yes.
Going upstairs.
Yes.
Well, everything I'm saying here came from her.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Also, when we did the cleaning of the cottages, she'd always provide us lunch, and she always had her own homemade jams for
Oh.
us. And, oh, yes.
I know, I don't know how she did everything.
And
She
Bill,
made the furniture, she did the slip covers, she hooked rugs.
Bill was always there.
Yeah, well, I thank you. I thank you all.
Thank you, Grace. That was terrific. Now, on my score, don't go away, Grace. On my list, it says Stuart Halliday has more to say.
Well,
Come on around.
I drank too much today, that's a bit of a problem, so. Grace, come on up here, I just want to thank you, and it's, I don't know where I've been, but I certainly haven't heard of this book, and I'm embarrassed, but I certainly will make sure that we get it from the library, and then we get some other copies of it as well. Your presentation and reading was wonderful, so.
That's lovely. That's so nice of you to say that.
Thank you, certainly. And enjoy the spring flowers,
Are
okay?
they beautiful? Yes, and spring is here.
I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea Matrasovs. Nice to put a face to a name, Andrea. Our warden, our Grey County warden is here. Would you please welcome Andrea Matrasovs.
Thank you very much for that introduction. My name is Andrea Matrasovs, and it's a Latvian name, so if you pronounce it with the first syllable, then you're now all speaking Latvian. My father was born and raised in Riga, Latvia during the war. Greetings to everyone. On behalf of Grey County Council, I am pleased to be here as the warden. And I have to say that the reason that I'm able to stand here today is because of the trails that have been blazed by the likes of Agnes Macphail. Indeed, over 170 years of history in Grey County, and I am only the third warden. So there is much in the words that I will say today that are really truly touching my heart, and the reason why I'm here and the reason why so many of the elected women are also here in the room as well is because of the work that she did ahead of us. So we are as proud as she was proud of being a member and a resident of Grey County. Grey County is proud that she has been here and the presence and the legacy that she has left. Today we are gathered here to honor and celebrate Agnes Macphail, often described as the most important Canadian woman in public life during the 20th century, and deservedly so. More than a century ago, she broke barriers as the first woman elected to the House of Commons. Agnes was proud of her rural Grey County roots, and as I said, Grey County remains proud of her and the path that she has blazed. Raised in a farming family, like many of the Grey County families here, she addressed challenges facing rural communities honestly and openly. When she launched her campaign as candidate for the United Farmers of Ontario for Southeast Grey, Reportedly, people packed the meeting hall. And famously, she told the crowd that she was not here to just smile at men and kiss babies, that there was a need to support farmers and ensure that their hard work was recognized and respected. And when the election results came in, it was clear in the rural townships that they had rallied behind her. In Grey County, we don't just admire Agnes Macphail for what she achieved, but we admire her because she embodied the qualities we value the most in our communities. She was strong and passionate. She was resilient and courageous. She was determined. We see those traits today in the exceptional woman that we are honoring here today. We've heard from the keynote speaker. I know we have more on the agenda. And I know that if she were here, she would be celebrating the fact that we are recognizing other women and what they have done in the paths that they have walked. I want to thank the organizers for today's event and for your dedication in recognizing this important anniversary. But I also want to thank the spirit of Agnes Macphail. I have to say, Grace, I was not expecting your keynote to hit me so closely. My mother was a baby born in the middle of World War II, just 2 hours north of Frankfurt, very close to the stories that were just shared. Many of the experiences that were shared in there are experiences that I've learned from my family, both my father, born in Riga, Latvia in 1939, and my mother in 1941 in the middle of Germany. I am so blessed to be here today because of what they endured, but also what my grandmothers endured and my great-grandmothers endured to make sure that their families survived. So when each time we come to vote, from the time that I was very young to where I stand here today, it has always been a sacred experience for our family. We go together just recently, and I guess again shortly at the end of next month. We go to the Ravenna Hall, 12 minutes from where we live in the town Blue Mountains, and 3 generations of our family all vote together. So whether or not it is voting or standing up and believing in something and running for an elected office, I have learned those stories because of the trails blazed by the likes of Agnes Macphail and the stories that we have heard today. Agnes not only gave women a voice in politics, but she inspired future generations to stand up for what they believe in. So I would leave all of a thought for us in whatever we do, whatever role we play, whatever role we have as a leader in a community, elected or non-elected, it doesn't matter. We have an opportunity to make a difference, and furthermore, we have a legacy like Agnes Macphail to remember to pass on that courage and that inspiration to the generations that will follow us, like my own children's and my own grandchildren's and all of yours. Thank you. Miigwech. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Andrea. It's very touching. Thank you. Now to the new kid on the block, the new sheriff in town. He's a dairy farmer from Meaford, and he's our new member of provincial parliament. Could you please give a warm welcome to our man at Queen's Park, Paul Vickers.
Thank you for those kind words and calling me a kid. I don't really feel a kid very much. Every time I get up after sitting for a while, it seems a little stiff, and I feel far from being a kid. But thank you for your remarks. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this occasion where we get to celebrate Grey County's most notable lady, Canada's first female member of Parliament, Agnes Macphail. Agnes is not just defined by her feat in Canadian history, however. She embodied what rural life was like at the time. A renowned teacher in a single-room school, she taught the youth right from wrong. As a rural advocate, she demanded our farmers get a fair shake from the federal government. And as women's rights advocates, she paved the way for the female politicians across this great country. A little known fact is that Agnes also went on to be one of the first 2 women elected in the Ontario legislation. That is where I seen her. A few weeks ago, I was down and walking around, and I went around this corner, and there was a picture of a woman. There's a wall of probably about, I would say, 15 women with their portraits, and she was the very first one. I thought, I wonder if that's Agnes Macphail. Because, during school, I learned a little bit about her, and I probably didn't learn a lot. I think I was just like the other lady saying that history wasn't my thing back in high school, but I certainly enjoy history now. And I looked up at her, and I looked down at the thing, and there was her name. And some of the things that they said, she followed her father's footsteps, is some of the stories I've heard, is that the reason why she got into politics was because her father was there, and she would follow behind her father. And she did advocate on behalf of the people in the area. And think back in that era of time, how hard it would be for a woman to get into politics and be elected by the peers. I think back to that, and it would have been, she must have been an incredibly strong person and an incredibly respected person. To have gotten enough votes to have won an election. So I'm pretty sure it wasn't a winter election back then, because it was a winter election. How would they ever get around in the wintertime to I guess. So anyway, thanks, Stu, for telling me. I just assumed it would have been an election in the summertime, but very good. Yeah, so that it just shows the willingness and the determination of the political people at that time, and how important it was to get out and vote. And if you look at, and Wikipedia is a great thing these days, because you can look up some of this stuff also. And the vote was reasonably close. It wasn't a landslide. So she must have worked very hard at it. So. They said she did, I think, 2 terms up in Ottawa. Do you know, Alex, whether I'm... No? Okay. I believe, if I remember right, it was 2 terms. Is it more than 2 terms? 19 years. 19 years, so far more than 2 terms. But I guess after she was not reelected, she still wanted to be in politics, and that's why she came to the provincial level. She moved down to a riding in Toronto, and she was elected at that point. So, one other quick little fact. I guess again, there's a little statue of her in the other corner, and I guess there was a media scrum when Mike Harris was in power, and somehow during that time, it was toppled over. But it has been repaired, and it is there. I have pictures of it on my phone when I was down there. So yeah, those are some of the things that I think are special about this woman, about how she did forge the way for all the women, and not the people in politics, but even my wife and my kids. So I think it's extremely important that we have such a great representative from Grey County. So anyway, I'd like to say thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to speak. This is my first time. So anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you have a nice afternoon.
You did good, kid. Brian Milne is here. He's here with a message, with a couple of messages, actually, so I'll let him tell you about it. Will you please welcome the Mayor of Southgate, Brian Milne.
Thank you. I do have some remarks here from the West Grey Mayor, Kevin Eccles. First things first, Kevin writes, may I offer my apologies for not being there in person today to celebrate with all in attendance. Now, I will qualify that by saying I think he's in the Dominican, so I don't know how sorry he really is. But nonetheless, he sends his regrets. My thoughts are that if a true fighter and visionary such as Agnes Macphail were on the political landscape of Canada or Ontario today, the leader of the U.S. he'd be experiencing a formidable opponent in her staunch opposition to any suggestion of the 51st state. Thank you, friends of the museum, for your continued efforts to keep us informed and to encourage the understanding of our history, especially for those who sacrificed so much to give all of us the freedoms and the life we so enjoy here in our great country we call Canada. We are also the birthplace of a lot of those citizens born right here in Grey County who contributed to making us Canadian. Agnes Macphail was at the forefront of all those who rose to do battle to protect Canada. Let us never forget you, Agnes. Congratulations also to Lynn and Colleen, well-deserved recognition for your community involvement, and again, thanks to the Friends of the Museum. So thank you, Mayor Eccles, for those remarks. Now, I'm going to bring greetings on behalf of the Township of Southgate, and I want to thank Jane very much for the invitation again. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's an honor, in fact, to be here on this auspicious day. And, you know, I want to recognize two Southgate councillors here today. I have Deputy Mayor DeBreen with me here this afternoon, and Councillor John is here as well. And I shouldn't make a point of saying, I'm proud to say that half of the Southgate Council are females, which is not very common. If you look across the province, that is not common at all, but I'm proud to say that half of our council are women. And yeah, absolutely. So after all that's been said here today by many of the politicians, I don't have much to add, but I'll leave you with this one thought. Agnes Macphail, I don't believe, was a die-hard, strict partisan. Although she could give as good or better than she got, I think Agnes would be described currently, right now, as a patriot. Given all that's going on politically, Agnes, I think, would be all in for Grey County, Ontario, and indeed Canada. So happy birthday, Agnes. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Brian. Always a pleasure. Let me introduce you now to Brenda Dimhoff. Brenda, stand up so we can see you hiding behind the piano there. This is Brenda Dimhoff, the beloved musical director here at Annesley United Church. She's also a concert pianist, and she's a professional accompanist. And this afternoon, Brenda is going to accompany me as I sing the Led Zeppelin classic, Stairway to Heaven. Just kidding. Brenda will actually transport us back to the era and the popular tunes of Agnes would have hummed at the time. Thanks, Brenda. to go, Brenda. Now, today we are honoring two local women who, like Agnes Macphail, have made a commitment to the well-being of their community. And they are Lynn Silverton and Colleen Boer. I flipped a coin earlier, so we're starting with Lynn Silverton. Lynn. If a Grey Highlander were to contact Lynn Silverton on any given day and mention a special project being developed, you can expect Lynn's first response to be, "How can I help?" Actually, in Lynn's case, it would be, "How can I help?" That's the response, anyway. Defines this woman. She was born Evelyn Elizabeth May Thornburn on July 26, 42, in the Kingdom of Fife, which she will tell you is the only surviving kingdom in Great Britain. Her independent spirit surfaced early in her life when she quit school at age 14, just to spite her father. He said she would never amount to much, and she began training as a nurse, and by age 21, she was working in an Edinburgh private nursing clinic. She married, she lost a daughter, she was widowed, she became a flight attendant in the 60s, remarried, emigrated to Canada in 67, and settled in Scarborough, where she and Colin Mackenzie had 4 children. After Lynn and Colin separated, she became a legal assistant with the Criminal Defense Council, and there she met Bob Silverton. At the time, he was a cop in North York. In 1983, following an amicable divorce with Colin, she married Bob. In 1992, they moved to Artemisia Township, Grey County, to support an elderly relative, and they bought a farm between Maxwell and Portlaw. And then Lynn sprang into action to rescue the faltering Flesherton Legion. She and Bob are still active members today. And in 2003, she was encouraged by Mayor Stan Baker to run for council, where she served for 15 years. She founded the Peace Committee. She's still its chair today, and she served on a lot of committees. The Museum Board, the Library Board, the Flesherton Chamber of Commerce, and the Police Service Board. And since then, she's been influential in various community activities, from the Gold Rush events in Eugenia to supporting the Black heritage work of Joan John, chair of the Juntian group in Dundalk, to assisting with the settlement of Ukrainian families. And in 2000, Lynn was honored as the Artemisia Woman of the Year. And in 2003, she was presented with the GBYWCA Peace Award. She's also a proud recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Gold and Diamond Jubilee medals, which I believe she's brought with her today. And anyway, today, despite her recent illness, her "How can I help?" response is still clearly heard around Grey County. Will you please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Lynn Silverton. Bless you, my dear.
Thank you. You tired me out listening to that.
Here's your certificate.
I'll ask the members of the Peace Committee now to be present and stand and be recognized as I read Lynn's presentation certificate. Thank you. Look at you all. Thank you for coming. You know these people, Lynn? Okay.
Handpicked.
Yeah. Okay. The Lynn Silverton. On this, the 23rd day of March 2025, we gather at Annesley United Church in Markdale, Ontario, on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, to observe our heartfelt tribute to Lynn Silverton of Grey Highlands, Grey County. We are pleased to honor her this afternoon as a woman who, in the admirable tradition of Agnes Campbell Macphail, contributed hours of service, initially to the betterment of the township of Artemisia, and more recently to the municipality of Grey Highlands. These hours of service reflect the true meaning of Agnes Macphail, MP, Grey County's political icon, who in 1921 was elected as the first Canadian woman to take a seat in the House of Commons. Lynn recognized the needs in her community and applied her skills in response to those needs. Her commitment, her ability to listen and to learn and to turn words into action reflect the attributes bestowed upon us by Agnes Campbell Macphail. And this is duly signed by members of the Friends of the Museum. Congratulations, Lynn.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And there's your,
Wow,
that's the pretty copy.
this is the pretty copy.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's not over yet. Look over there.
Ooh, I like flowers.
Goes there, and I'm going to step out of the way because they're going to take pictures of you.
Can I not say something? Mr. Mayor, can I say something? See, he's like me and doesn't know when to shut up.
I'll take it.
Can I?
Of course, Lynn.
Oh, hi. I am absolutely thrilled and embarrassed, but thank you so much. I did hear about Agnes Macphail at school, in Scotland, in the Kingdom of Fife. And she did lead for women to step forward, and I think it was the good air up here in Grey County that made her the first one to get the guts to do it. I know that when I ran in 2003, I was the only woman on council, and Mr. Mayor and I were newbies on the council, except he had Osprey experience from before. And for 7 years, I was the only woman. It was really nice when some more ladies joined, because there was a huge feeling that I got, and I think some of the other ladies of the day, that the women should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, you know, and no business on council. I showed them. Oh, don't shut me up, you know. But I'm really grateful. The last group that I'm with that was mentioned about the Ukrainians, we had a really sad weekend starting yesterday. One of our first families, they are 4 siblings of 9, so the other 5 are still over there. But one of them, at the age of 21, before that he was with the underground and saving wounded people and moving people out of hot areas. But at the age of 21, he was killed yesterday. And thanks to Rural Net, that's Heiner and Suzanne, we got money together, and their mother and brother have gone over there. Some of you have met his other brother through Rural Net, and the 3 of them look like they're triplets, except there's many years between them, or some years. So they've gone over, and the 17-year-old brother, the last we heard, is determined to stay there and carry on his brother's army service. And I'm not happy. And I'm sure the families are a little nervous. So it better end before he reaches the age where he can be conscripted. And but we now have the Canadian Sunflower Foundation, which makes it even easier for us to get donations and do things like that, send them over if they have to go, and hopefully back. We have waited patiently for 2 or 3 years, and we are now able to do tax receipts and things. So hopefully there's no other need to send them over there. And because before the war over there, most of them, except 2 that are no longer here, had planned to come to Canada anyway. So it's not as if they're coming here and getting our help. But it's something I can get my teeth into. It's something that I know Colleen is similar. You need something that you feel you're doing something. And after 15 years and being a recovering politician, Stuart, you and I, kid, this is something I can get into. Thank you. And Colleen, I've had pleasure working with her on various things, and it's wonderful that she's here today with 2 of us, eh? Thank you.
Okay, I think I got the hang of it now. And now on to Colleen Boer, Grey Highlands 2025 Citizen of the Year. Colleen was born in Toronto in 1949, the 3rd in a family of 6 girls, to parents Jean and Dr. Bill Wright. He was a dentist. And following a move to Alberta, they settled in Milton, Ontario, when she was 12. Colleen attended Notre Dame Academy in Waterdown for her secondary years, and this is where she learned her leadership skills, and they began to blossom. She became involved in the student council, and as she says, always trying to find ways to make things better. She also worked as a part-time cashier at a local grocery store. Now, did she suspect that the then fellow part-time employee, a guy called Ed Boer, who was stocking shelves, would later feature in her life? Remains to be seen. Colleen's paternal grandparents owned property west of Flesherton, where the Wright family came for summer vacations. And yes, Colleen and Ed did get married in Milton in 1970, and they began to raising a family. They were thinking about starting a business in the Flesherton area. And by 1984, they bought property on the West Back Line, placed their 2 sons in a local school, and were well on their way to establishing Aero Industries, a custom manufacturing business specializing in aluminum fabrication, which is still functioning as a family business in Markdale. Being community-minded, they joined the local Chamber of Commerce, where Colleen's talents for combining teamwork and leadership was immediately recognized, and thus was immediately brought into play. She became a member of St. John's Glenelg Catholic Church, and that opened up more executive volunteer positions for her. During those years, Colleen worked on many projects with the late Geraldine Robinson of Flesherton. She was well known as a force for community development, and one of Robinson's goals was the much-needed improvement of Memorial Park. This project ultimately led to Colleen's role in rescuing the local museum from proposed demolition in 2002. Now today, she's the chair of the museum board. She volunteers with the Peace Committee. She continues to play an active role with her church, and she's part of the Grey Highlands Community Fund, which supports local nonprofit projects. People who have volunteered with Colleen marvel at her thorough preparation for every meeting, every task. And the thing about Colleen is she's kind of shunned the limelight. And that exists at the core of her achievements, secured under her leadership. And indeed, her 2025 Grey Highlands Citizen of the Year is a most fitting award. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Colleen Boer. My dear. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask the members of the museum board present to stand and be recognized while I read Colleen's presentation certificate.
Nice.
Thank you, folks. On this day, the 23rd day of March 2025, we gather at Annesley United Church in Markdale, Ontario, on traditional territory of the Anishinaabe to observe our heartfelt tribute to Colleen Boer of Grey Highlands, Grey County. We are pleased to honor her this afternoon as a woman who, in the admirable tradition of Agnes Campbell Macphail, had contributed countless hours of service, initially to the betterment of the township of Artemisia, and more recently to the municipality of Grey Highlands. These hours of service reflect the true meaning of Agnes Macphail's MP Grey County political icon, who in 1921 was elected as the first Canadian woman to take a seat in the House of Commons. Colleen recognized needs in her community, and she applied her teamwork style of leadership to respond to those needs. Her commitment, her ability to listen and to learn and to turn words into actions reflect the attributes bestowed upon us by Agnes Campbell Macphail. Again, duly signed by the Friends of the Museum. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think I got this right, Colleen. I think.
Indeed that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, Steve. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jeff, for those kind words, and thank you as well to the Friends of the Museum for this honor today. It is very much appreciated. I'm kind of with Lynn, kind of thrilled and a little bit embarrassed, because that's not why we do this. But anyway, how time flies. When Ed and I moved to this area about 40 years ago, the longest we'd ever lived in one place since we were married was about 5 years. However, the village of Flesherton and area had always been near and dear to our hearts. I have some local roots here with the families, the Pedlars, the Meldrums, Clendenins, and the Stone families. My grandparents had a farm out on Stone's Line, the fourth concession, which we used to use as a cottage during the 60s and 70s, which when we chose to make our home here in 1984, we felt that we had found our community. As the years passed, Ed and I both wanted to give back to our chosen community, and Ed became a volunteer firefighter, and I got involved in lots of things. The Flesherton Chamber of Commerce, which Lynn mentioned, was one of the first. As new business owners of Yarrow Industries, and with other business owners such as Archie and Pat Bernard and Frank Colt and Garnet Robinson, we worked to build and improve our community. Jock and Geraldine Robinson, Joan McMillan, and Lynn Silverton were other active community builders that I was pleased to work with. I've always felt that if you see something could be better, you should work toward that goal. And my work with the Grey Highlands Peace Committee and the Grey Highlands Community Fund are part of my efforts toward that. As has been noticed, I've been active at the museum for a long time. Turns out Stuart is more than 20 years. But I'm pleased to have been part of the museum and its history as we just celebrated its 50th anniversary. And, you know, cross-selling here, please be sure and come on down and see the newly renovated spaces and exhibits. But nobody can accomplish these kinds of things alone. So I'd like to give thanks to my husband, Ed, for his support and patience as I do what I do. And he can just shake his head. And thank you to my family for their assistance with whatever help I need on each project. My grandkids have helped me serve the peace lunch a few times, and thank you so much. Appreciate my family's support. And thank you as well to all my community members, the committee, board, curator, municipal reps. Over the years, your help and encouragement have allowed us, together we've built and continue to build our pride of place. Our community gets stronger each time we join our efforts together. My friend John Butler has allowed me to use his quote from his New Year's message. If we don't like what we see, may we aspire and conspire to create what we would like to see. Thank you so very, very much. Much appreciated. Thank you, dear. Over here.
Down here.
Thank you, Barbara.
What wonderful women. Thank you, ladies, very much. And as our host mayor, I'd like to ask Paul McQueen to deliver some closing remarks. Come on up, Paul. Paul McQueen, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone today. And it's great that we continue to celebrate Agnes Macphail's birthday year after year, and there's always new things that come out. So to start off with, I'd like to thank you for all coming to celebrate the birthday of Agnes Macphail. Agnes was a leader who fought for the rights of farmers, women, and workers. She was known for her strong voice and determination to make a difference, as we have seen today from others. Her work helped shape the future of our community, inspire many to follow in her footsteps. Now, I sort of was thinking about this the other day. Interesting, she was first elected in a winter election. So it was in December, but just think of the election we just had and the equipment that we have and the roads that we have. Can you imagine back in 1921 what the conditions would have been like? I'm sure they're a lot different. So I would say put that in perspective and the determination of still getting out there and making a difference. As we think about her accomplishments, let us remember the importance of community and the role each of us play in making it stronger. Agnes believed in the power of people coming together to create a positive change. And it's through our combined efforts that we continue to honor her legacy. I would like to thank everyone who made this event possible. Jane, I see you're standing in front of me here, or sitting in front of me, and all the others and everyone here today. Also, I'd like to thank thank you for the speakers for their thoughtful contributions and all of those who worked behind the scenes to organize this wonderful event. And just want to start for recognizing our warden and our neighboring mayor, Mayor Brian Mellon, our local MP, Alex Ruff, and our newly elected MPP, Paul Vickers. Thank you for attending. I see Barbara DeBreen, and I see Joan Johns is here from our neighboring municipality. I see Councillor Dubik here from our council. I don't know if there's anybody else here from Grey Highlands, but I'm sure they're here in spirit for sure. Again, thank you for being here to celebrate Agnes Macphail and our wonderful community. Your presence shows how much we value and remember the contributions of remarkable individuals like Agnes. Together, we continue to honor her legacy and build a better future for everyone. I think we have to draw on her strengths for what's happening in the world and in Canada and North America itself, and to work together and to continue to defend all the great things that we enjoy as we take for granted in our community and our country. Also recognizing Lynn, I think it was interesting that you said, Jeff, that Lynn's always wanted to say yes, and you've been involved with many, many things, and maybe you have to write a book on your memoirs of all the things because I'm sure I don't know them all yet. And Bob, I know you are a great supporter of Lynn, and if Lynn can't get there, you get her there. And I remember one event one time, it's sort of a funny story, and I don't know if I should tell it or not, but Lynn and I went to a small conference down Eastern Ontario, and so I drove, and Bob picked Lynn up in Singhampton with this brand new Ford truck. And so away they went. It was in the evening. It was in the fall, probably in the later part of September. And anyway, I get this call from Lynn. Paul, we hit a deer. And it was a big deer on this brand new Ford aluminum truck. Remember Ford went to aluminum, and So anyway, I come back and I pick up Lynn, and I think you had Bob had the dog, something with the dog or something you had to get home. Bob was going to stay until the tow truck came. And so anyway, I took Lynn home. And I met Alan's garage with a big flatbed coming. So I thought, this was a big buck, big antlers, huge. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to phone my boys and say, hey, if you want to get a good set of racks, there's one on the side of the road. Anyway, so picture this in mind. I'm driving Lynn back. drop her off, and then on the way back, I picture Alan's garage coming back with the truck. This is at night in the dark. So I just head on home, and so then I get home, and my boys say to me, "Dad, we went over there, but the head antlers were gone. The deer was there, but the antlers were gone." So the next day, I happened to have I think I had a police services board meeting. Well, then there was this whole story about the call from the OPP went out to check this deer, but the deer had missing his head because somebody had took the antlers. It was a very funny story, and I think, long story short, I think the individual that was driving the truck thought that was a good prize, so he took the antlers with him. So somewhere they're hanging up somewhere, and there's some story that goes around, this big buck, and it was a big buck. I don't know what it cost. I think it was $20,000. Well, I don't know what it cost you to fix that nice brand new Ford, and it doesn't really matter, but it really put a dent in that truck. Anyways, this is an example of some funny stories that when you're with Lynn, things happen, and it's just all for fun times and that sort of thing. And also, Colleen, I want to recognize you. I know we did as far as the great event we had there for the Mayor's Levy, and great you were able to come out and all those accolades that were mentioned, and well-deserved. And I know you and Stuart were a big part of the museum, which is still standing today, and I would suggest that those that haven't been there, it looks great. And just the works of how you, but you've been on that board, Colleen, since it started, 2000, you've been chair since 2003, have you not? Right, well, as long as I know you, you've been chair, and I know I sat on the museum and then, this is a small group that have done great things, and, a lot of communities today don't have museums that reflect on their community, and fortunately we have one here in Flesherton. So I know Alex, you've been there, and others have been there, and I know the big part of that museum was recognizing Agnes Macphail and some of the furniture and different things that were part of her life, which are being preserved today. So again, it's as a community, and it's just not Grey Highlands, but South Grey, and also how we're so tied together in so many ways, and we'll continue to do that. And a great, again, Jane, all that you and Barry have done over the years on that as well. So I'm going to end, and fantastic day. It's not a significant weather day, as we have heard a lot this past winter. I think that's the new thing that municipalities do. It's a significant weather day, and it's with regards to insurance and stuff. Anyway, great event. Continue to have these, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Paul. And while I'm at it, thank you up there to the Titan of Tech, Tim Riley, for the sound, the lights, the everything. And where would this municipality be without Highland Grounds? They show up at every single event, providing some of the best coffee I've ever had. I don't know about you. Want to thank the friends of the museum, including their newest member, Stuart Halliday. Gets a special mention, Stuart. Yeah. And a special thanks to she without whom none of this would have happened, the incomparable Jane Gibson. You can join Jane and all our guests in the fellowship room for some refreshments after I've finished talking. I got two more things to say. One is there's a really interesting speaker series coming out. It's Hap Wilson. It's called Exploring the Disappearing Wilderness. I think this is going to be a really good one. It's April 17th, if you want to put that on your calendar. And the last thing I want to say to you all is elbows up. Thank you.